As you may have seen in the opening montage, Dino Melaye joins us now. He's a former member of the House of Reps, but I understand he's now with an anti-corruption agency, not the EFCC. But tell us about that. I mean, how come the transition? We thought you were going to prepare to go back to politics, but now...
I'm yet to shut my door against politics, but the Anti-Corruption Network is a non-governmental organization, and it's an NGO that is out to fight corruption as we see it as the bane of our development in this country. And we want to believe that once we fight corruption, every other thing will fall in place. And we're out to expose corruption at all levels.
Okay. The last time you were here, you said you were blind and now you could see.
Yeah.
So there are lots of Nigerians who are perhaps blind concerning the way the house works. And so maybe they're hoping on you this morning to make them see. Give us the benefit of the doubt in terms of how does this happen on the floor of the house? Because we've had people who consistently say that they were surprised that Farouk Lawan will be involved in this kind of matters while others think differently. Perhaps they know something others don't. What's your impression of this scenario? Yeah,
I will start by saying that it is unfortunate to start with what actually happened, but not surprising because having worked with Farouk Lawan in the house, I will not be. I'm not surprised at all at the revelations and satanic manifestations as we're saying it. I'm not surprised at all.
Why?
Because Farouk Lawan is the leader of a cartel in the House of Representatives. I made that pronouncement severally. Instead, he insulted me on pages of newspapers. He called me names. But I've always consistently told Nigerians that he's the leader of a cartel in the house, and except that cartel is broken, the corruption will continue on the rise in the house. I'm not surprised, and it's what I actually expected. If you recall, 4 weeks ago, I had a full-page editorial in This Day newspaper, where I said Nigerians should not celebrate Farouk Lawan yet. And I asked some questions in that full-page editorial in This Day, and I said that why were the major companies exempted from the indicted list, including an oil company whose ship was seized for fraudulent activities. That company was also not on the list. So I asked that question, and I said Farouk Lawan should revisit those companies. And obviously Zenon, Synopsis and others, they were all part of the companies I mentioned in that, not even knowing that this will all eventually come up.
Did you make a representation to the House or to his committee?
It's a full-page editorial, and a letter to Mr. President attentioning the Speaker of the House of Representatives. Yeah, so it's a public
so they were supposed to pick it up from there or expect you to make your presentation?
Every write-up that is open, as in form of an open letter, they have media assistants who are supposed to actually get a cut of them and address them as the case may be.
Now, tell us.
And I was also on AIT, and I made the same assignations.
What do you think during proceedings of that particular probe that was televised nationally?
Basically, I will start by saying that in an ideal situation, we're not even supposed to have probes. If you have a working National Assembly, you're not supposed to have probes, and if you will have probes, not in the numbers we're having them right now. Every legislator has got three primary responsibilities. One, the act of representation, that's representing your people, getting dividends of democracy to your constituency and all that. That's one aspect. The second aspect is the act of lawmaking through bills and motions and all that. Then the third, to me, is even the most important. That's your oversight function over the MDAs, ministry departments and agencies. That is the most important. So if every legislator will carry out its oversight function, if there's no ministry, no parastatal of government, no agency of government, no department of government that is not being oversighted by the National Assembly via committees. So if every committee will carry out their oversight function with every sincerity of purpose, of heart and commitment, if every committee will carry out their oversight function with the fear of God periodically, at least quarterly, then there will be proper evaluation of the MDAs, there will be proper oversight function over the MDAs, there will be budget implementation and justification for monies as appropriated in the budget.
Mr. Melaye, by inference, when we carry out probes, we should also bring before such panels members of the National Assembly who carried oversight function concerning that particular sector or agency?
It's an indictment on the National Assembly if you have probes. Because if proper legislative oversight function has been carried out, you ought to have discovered these anomalies.
But you had
this
presented over probes while you were on the
Say
House.
again?
You presented over some probes.
No. I never. All I presided over was investigative hearing as chairman of House Committee on Information, and I recovered billions of naira through my committee back to this country, and I forwarded 2 contractors to the EFCC who actually got contracts for the government printing press, and for 11 years they said it's on sea. I had to recall even that was Arumi, who was minister 12 years ago.
What about the runway matter in Abuja? You were not involved in that
I
one.
I moved that motion. I moved that motion because they said 64 billion naira. And let me tell you the problem. The problem is that that runway contract was approved by the Federal Executive Council. It went through the due process office. That's the procurement office. But 64 billion for runway. I carried out my research and I went to 6 countries and discovered that 64 billion is enough to build you a brand new airport with all facilities. Then how can you tell me you want a second runway in Nnamdi Azikiwe Airport with 64 billion? So I brought it to the floor and I gave a comparative analysis, and eventually the House saw reason with it, and the President now set up a panel, eventually now reduced it to 49 billion. I came back to the floor to say no, even that 49 billion is a rape, because I have 2-3 airports built in Nigeria with a runway of about 3.8 kilometers of the same magnitude and size and quality of job with the one that is to be built in there. I'm talking of airports built for that amount. So at the end of the day, I brought it back to the office, and that was what forced President Jonathan to cancel that contract. So what I'm saying in essence is that oversight functions, if properly carried out, is enough to check probes. There will be no need for probes.
But there are provisions for probes in the is it the makeup of the rules of
investigation?
The House?
There are constitutional provisions for investigations. But what I'm saying is that to make it probe, an elaborate probe, is as a result of deficiencies of our legislative practice. Because if they were if all committees are carrying out their, in fact, what you are finding out now in the oil sector should have been detected by relevant committees in the relevant committee, both in the House and in the Senate. But because there is a satanic collabo between the executive, the public officers, and the legislature and the National Assembly. So definitely, many a times there's problem. I mean, a legislature is going for oversight function, ministry is sponsoring your movement, or a department of government is the one sponsoring your movement and paying you extra code. Automatically, at that point, there's a compromise. But having said all this, the problem of corruption in this country is systemic. It's systemic. And I want to tell you that if the National Assembly is taking 20%, the federal government will take 80% of it. Because what is happening in the oil sector that led to this probe, as I speak to you, there's no sincerity of purpose, of heart, and commitment by government, by the federal government, to fight corruption. Instead, I will tell you that the federal government and this present government fertilize corruption, promote corruption, and massage corruption. How? I will tell you. In the oil sector, as I speak to you, the Minister of Petroleum, Dizzani Madueke, she is the chairman of the board of NNPC. She is also the supervising minister of PPPRA and the minister in charge of the petroleum sector. And now there's an indictment by the resolution of the House on NNPC, on PPPRA. And she's still sitting as Minister of Petroleum. And there's an ongoing investigation.
So shouldn't we wait for that?
There's an ongoing investigation. President Jonathan should have learned from his predecessor. I'm talking Umar Yar'Adua of blessed memory. When the former Minister of Health and former Minister of State for Health were indicted in a corruption issue, they were immediately suspended. He was the vice president then. They were immediately suspended while investigation was ongoing.
Yeah, but is it too late for anything to be done now? Because investigation is ongoing.
It's not going.
So why don't we wait until
let me tell you, government cannot.
It's not a bridge that
government cannot appropriate and reprobate. In the same vein, Dana aircraft just happened a few days ago. In less than a week, the DG of NCAA, who is not directly in charge of tower control and all that, but is the administrative head, was placed on suspension because investigation is going on. The secretary,
the National Assembly,
the DG of SEC, has been placed on compulsory leave or suspension, as the case may be, because it's an ongoing investigation.
It was the board.
Then what is stopping? What is stopping?
No, the circumstances. The board.
I'm telling you now, but the president is there. The president is there.
But
the
it wasn't
principal of theory.
It wasn't the president that directed all of those.
But it is the president that appointed the minister of petroleum. And if you are investigating that sector, especially given the fact that she's the chairman of the board of NPC, and she's still sitting, and there's going to be a prosecution, and sorry, there's going to be investigation, definitely she's going to impede on investigation.
What about those who argue, a moment here, what about those who argue that the investigation should also go beyond her tenure? She just came into office how long ago?
Fine and good.
But again, why didn't the investigation look beyond her tenure? And almost all the activities that they say is unwholesome actually transpired before her tenure.
Every probe has got a time of reference. Probe has got a time of reference. Every investigation has got a time of reference. So if their time of reference is to investigate what happened 3-4 years ago to now, you cannot blame anybody for that. But what we are saying is that she is the current Minister of Petroleum. If you want to have a proper investigation, if there's sincerity of purpose of heart and commitment on the part of government to fight corruption, then she ought to go on compulsory suspension or leave of absence, as the case may be, for proper investigation to be conducted. Okay. So if this corruption issue, as I'm saying, I'm sorry, Chamberlain, is a systemic issue, problem that needs to be tackled holistically.
If you say it's systemic, does it mean that Farouk Lawan couldn't have acted alone, or do we need to blame him, or blame what system do we blame it on?
No, Farouk Lawan, I'm sorry, his problem, as far as I'm concerned, is individualistic. We have to separate him from the institution. What is done is a criminal offense, and it should be tackled criminally.
So suspending him from the institution, in other words, means an endorsement on what the House did on Friday.
But I support wholly what the House did on Friday by suspending him and also reintroducing the name of Zenon and Synopsis. And the truth of the matter is that what is happening is a macabre dance. What is happening is a movie. It's a movie, and we cannot, I am saying this with every sense of seriousness, that is a movie, and the presidency and the federal government is the major actor. Okay. Whether you want to believe it or not.
That's speculative.
I mean, you may think it's speculative, but
but the law says it's speculative. I mean, it will be speculative from the point of law. Remember,
I can tell you this. The arrogance, that's what we're saying. Agreed, but the arrogance with which Femi Otedola is going about this issue, to me, stipulated clearly that there is a systemic supported, the whole thing is a systemic supported, or it's a system supported operation. It's a system supported operation, or system supported corruption. In the first instance, for a private Nigerian to regard a resolution of the Federal House of Representatives as laughable ought to have been condemned even by the President of the Federal Republic of Nigeria. But the President cannot condemn it because he's guilty of the same. When they passed a resolution on the House on the issue of subsidy, the President gathered it through Ruben Abati as mere resolution of the House. Yeah, but he forgot, that it was that same mere resolution of the House that made him acting president in this country. He forgot that it's the same, and he celebrated it. He invited us for dinner. He was so happy about that resolution. But in the same vein, it has become mere resolution of the House. So if the president was mere, the House of Representatives.
No, it wasn't mad because the courts and the law were also involved in that circumstance. So it wasn't just
we don't work with the courts. It was a resolution of the House, a practical resolution of the House
based on
that said.
Yeah, but what did they base it on? They based it on the Constitution.
We based it on the Constitution, and we used.
And then it was even later amended. The Constitution was later amended.
Agreed. But what I'm saying that it was a resolution. It was a resolution of the House. You cannot decide to choose which resolution you appreciate and
besides,
appreciate.
We didn't even need a resolution because the laws were there in the first place.
You needed a resolution.
You needed that.
And the action was predicated on that resolution of the House.
Based on law. But
where we used doctrine of necessity
to
make him the acting president of the country. And he celebrated it at that point in time. So what I'm saying in essence is that the arrogance of Femi Otedola right now is because